We're coming up on 7:45. If you feel like money is tight these days, you're not the only one thinking that. Higher rent, grocery prices have left a lot of Americans struggling to pay their bills, but there are some steps you can take to try and loosen the burden or ease the burden. We're being joined by financial expert Derrick Williams to break it all down. And I was telling you before we came on, you know, it's a lot easier to make a budget than it is to stick with a budget.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is building habits from the beginning. It's like one of the things I like the most is, you know, automated savings. So if you're taking, you know, $50, you know, per paycheck, or, you know, putting money into your retirement, because then you don't even think about it.
And I'm assuming one of the biggest mistakes people make, and Randy Waishu, who works with you, always says this, you know, use a credit card like cash. If you build up that credit card debt, even if you just pay off the minimum, it'll take you years to pay it off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I will try to tell people, if you have a little bit of a bill, just pay it off immediately, because that's another automating trick that people get stuck in is, oh, well, I paid off the 15th every month. Well, sometimes it can build up and you don't realize that.
Yeah, and that's what, so what are the first thing you tell clients to do when making a budget?
The first thing I do is tell them to actually figure out what you're spending, because I'll ask a question, you know, how much you think you're spending, and people have no idea. Most people have no idea, right? So I will tell them, you know, figure out, okay, what do you actually spend on, you know, utilities, rent, things you have to pay for, a cell phone bill, and then figure out the variables. So, you know, that might be, you know, eating out, it might be, you know, X amount this much, X amount another month, and then like entertainment. So figure out what you actually spend and kind of try to get a track of the last 3 to 6 months.
And for most people, it is kind of shocking when you put things down on paper to realize just how much you're spending every month.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, like, one of the tips I have is what I call the subscription cleanse. So, okay, do you have a Hulu account that you pay for and you don't even, you know, realize that you don't use it? Or, you know, like a Spotify family plan and it's only yourself. So looking at things like that, as well as, you know, looking at bills, you know, is your Wi-Fi, you know, $30 more than you thought it might be. So also, you know, doing kind of a, you know, check-in on what, you know, you're paying for your bills.
You know, and you mentioned Hulu. I wanted to watch the Steve Martin Short, Selena Gomez show. So I did the 30-day free trial. I'll try and watch as much as I can and then cut it off after 30 days. Yeah,
so that's a trick that people do as well. As I know, as we're getting to football season, people want to do this trial, that trial. So watch out for those, because as soon as that 30 days ends, they're going to charge your card.
And what about when you see these credit card offers where it says you can borrow up to X amount of dollars and interest free? So if you want to put all your other credit card debt on that, it really helps out.
Yeah, that one is dependent on the situation. You know, some
depends
people
on how long they.
Yeah, how long it is. So some people have the ability to pay off that interest, you know, fairly quickly. Some people end up may just being essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul. So you have to be kind of cognizant of, you know, changing debt.
And what you try to tell people, I assume, is to change their thinking about what they want to have and what they need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like, do you need, you know, a golf membership, or, you know, is it more important to have, you know, the New York Times membership instead? You know, trying to cut down on, you know, little things and figure out what you need versus.
Really, you compared to golf to New York Times?
Well, I just say that just because that ends up being, you know, a more expensive thing where, you know, maybe it's more important for you to have the reading, where golf, you know, maybe a more expensive hobby where you don't need that.
Yeah, and you know, the things we do that we find out we really don't need, because there's so many, you're talking about subscriptions, things like that we have, that we really don't use that often.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why I think it's important to always kind of do either, you know, a 3 to 6 month check-in or quarterly check-in of, okay, what have I been spending? Do I need this? Do I need that? Because there's just so much out there that you may be paying for, you have no idea, and some things you know, may never use it.
Yeah, and in a similar thing, health experts will tell you if you do want to lose some weight, just write down what you eat every day, and you don't realize just what you're eating, and in your case, what you're spending.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's all about the building habits. So, you know, you said at the beginning, it's very easy to, you know, make a budget, but sticking with it. Yeah,
like a New Year's resolution.